Okay, hey guys, shit.
One evening, Himari
Oh, that was pure luck.
with enthusiasm as she shared her
Okay, I did not mean to
She had
start
set up
open.
scenes for a meeting
Bleh.
after school,
I do not mean to
using
start the
work to make
video
the
like that,
task
but
easier
this
for the
day I'm going
professors.
to defeat this
Her
battle
hands glow
tower.
with radiant energy
Or
as
at
she
least the
recounted her
boss.
victories. Her eyes
Not the lower floors because there's
Inko
freaking
looked down at
pillagers
her
on
daughter
there.
with
I
pride,
hate
affirming
pillagers.
her bright future. All Might, towering in the doorway, patted his daughter on the head, expressing his pride in her potential
Now,
as a hero.
Richie isn't
Meanwhile,
here right now. He
Izuku
might
sat
hop on later
quietly
with
at the
me,
edge of the table,
but not
picking at his
exactly
food.
right now.
His thoughts drifted
So
elsewhere,
I'm killing
lost
this
in the fog of his mind.
Norvig
The
Cloud Reaper
admiration his
with my
parents had
dragon
for him
Acidon
already
here.
felt like a distant echo.
Acidon here.
Cautious, calm
Acidon.
child among them
Acidin.
went unnoticed, and it was almost impossible
I'm very
to
awkward
recall
right
the
now.
last time someone had genuinely acknowledged him. He was the invisible son,
Don't know
the
why
one
I'm
who
very
didn't meet
awkward. I just
society's
hate.
expectations for the child of All Might. However, Izuku was
I
different.
try to go to
While other
sleep, but the
children
voices
relied
in
on
my
their
head
quirks,
go.
he depended on his intellect. He had long since
I try
concluded
to
that
go to
greatness
sleep,
could be
but the
achieved
voices in my
without a
head go.
peculiarity. He believed he could create something extraordinary. He
I
spent
try to
hours
go
in
to
his room
sleep,
after
but the
school,
voices in my
poring
head
over
go.
mechanical gadgets, books, and schematics, trying to solve the puzzle that kept him awake at night. How could he prove his significance, even without a quirk? At the age of 6,
As you
Izuku
can
had
see,
already
I
begun
got
to
down
develop a passion
halfway,
for engineering. He
almost
loved
below
disassembling
halfway,
toys, gadgets, and
because I see
malfunctioning
it
machinery,
stuck
seeing the
right
inner
at the end
workings
of
that others
the
overlooked.
head of
He
the
understood
bar.
how systems operated, how power
I
flowed,
don't know if
and
I
how
have to
gears
take
turned.
down the rest
His
with
first significant
physical
breakthrough
attacks.
came when someone brought a small drone to a family gathering. Although the drone had broken and fallen into the garden, Izuku spent the evening repairing it. It didn't fly perfectly, but it took to the air again, and that small victory ignited a strong
Okay, so it is
longing
going
within
down
him
just
to
slowly.
create, build, and innovate. Now, as he
Come on,
sat at the
Acidin,
dinner
I know you
table,
can kill
his
it.
mind raced with thoughts of his latest
You'll get a
project,
lot of me if you
determined to
do.
prove that he could make a difference in a world filled with heroes. His thoughts wandered to a novel concept he had been developing for several weeks, an apparatus capable of controlling electromagnetic fields. Though it was a tiny prototype, it belonged to him, even if it paled in comparison to his parents' remarkable inventions. He was the only one who could truly understand it, and progress could only be made by him. Over the last few days,
Come
he
on, I
had been
hate
testing
aiming
magnetic
with it,
fields, creating
honestly.
intricate circuits, and experimenting with
I'm
various
sorry,
materials.
Acidon, but I
The
do hate
results had
having
been
to aim
promising.
you this way.
Like
Because I have
individuals with
stick
unique
drift going
quirks,
to the
he would
left, so I
soon
have
have
to
something that could
constantly...
transform his
Here,
surroundings.
look.
He aimed to make an impression
Oh, well, that's
without
just
possessing a
awesome. Now it's not
peculiar
going.
ability. However, a lingering truth weighed on him throughout the night. He grew up in a world filled with heroes, where everyone seemed to have something valuable to offer, but Izuku felt he had nothing. At least, that was how it appeared to those around him. Yet, Izuku was determined to prove them wrong. He aspired to be something greater than his father, but he would not be a hero in the traditional sense. He would change the world in his own way. Chapter 2 begins in many respects.
So
School
close.
served as a battlefield.
I can see the
For
loot
most
right
students,
there.
it was a
And
learning
it's so
environment where they
close.
refined their
Come on,
eccentricities and
Acidon.
prepared for
This
the
is the
future.
last push.
Izukuyagi viewed it as a laboratory, a controlled setting with numerous variables that allowed for the analysis,
Yes.
prediction, and neutralization of predictable
Come on,
patterns of
Acidon.
human
I think
behavior.
just one more.
He had already recognized the
Maybe a
crucial
few more, but
weakness in the
at
structure
least
of
one.
society in this quirk-ruled world, where power and spectacle were valued above all else. Without intelligence, strength was merely chaos. And mayhem, that was manageable. The Yagi siblings were polar opposites at school. Their class's brightest star was Himari, who exuded charisma and brightness. Her natural charm was only enhanced by her ability to manipulate light, attracting both teachers and students. She led class projects, excelled in group activities, and was generally considered the heir apparent to their father's valiant legacy. Izuku, however, was a mystery. Quiet and eccentric, he received little admiration from peers or praise from teachers, but he did not provoke their disdain directly. Even though his family name shielded him from open ridicule, the sneers and contemptuous looks persisted. He remained indifferent. His classmates were data points, their peculiarities predictable in their limitations, their actions reducible to algorithms of envy, insecurity, and pride. They were instruments, each with a purpose he could utilize if needed, or barriers that could be carefully navigated.
See, this is why I
poured
hate
into the
villagers.
cafeteria as the lunch bell rang, creating a clatter of chairs against tile floors. Izuku remained behind, organizing his notebook with care. Every page served as a storehouse of ideas, observations, and theories. His thoughts were focused on his most recent schematic, a small energy dispersal module. Although it wasn't his most ambitious endeavor, it was effective. The door slammed open. Katsuki Bakugo's sharp voice echoed in the empty classroom, accompanied by his usual entourage. Bakugo's aggressive swagger filled the space, his red eyes blazing with a challenge that needed no words. He taunted Izuku, implying he was still hiding with his inventions. Izuku kept his eyes on his notebook, stating that he was being interrupted. The lackeys laughed, misinterpreting his calm demeanor as S.B. Emerson. Bakugo's grin widened, but it was predatory. He offered Izuku a chance to prove he wasn't completely useless. Izuku closed his notebook carefully, the sound resonating in the quiet room. When he met Bakugo's gaze, his expression was cold and resolute. He dismissed Bakugo's theatrics, calling his insecurities boring. The atmosphere thickened, and Bakugo's grin faded into a snarl. Izuku continued, pointing out Bakugo's predictability and reliance on brute force due to a lack of intelligence. Bakugo reasoned.
Damn it, man. Acidon's gone now.
Izuku's chest.
Gotta fucking
But Izuku
kill
was
those
already in motion,
pillagers.
activating a hidden device on his
They're
wrist that sent out a
screwed.
focused sonic wave, knocking Bakugo off balance.
Okay, I guess I
Bakugo
can't go right
growled,
there.
regaining his footing and insisting that power would always prevail. Izuku remained silent, pulling out a second device, a flash emitter, and activating it. A blinding light filled the room, forcing Bakugo and his lackeys to shield their eyes. Bakugo, enraged, lunged at Izuku without thinking. Izuku sidestepped, using Bakugo's momentum against him. Bakugo stumbled, and Izuku placed a hand on his shoulder, pushing him further off balance. He remarked on Bakugo's reliance on instinct, calling it sloppy. Bakugo retaliated with a series of explosive attacks, but Izuku was prepared. He activated a magnetic disruptor that interrupted the chemical reactions in Bakugo's sweat-based explosions, causing them to fizzle out harmlessly. Bakugo's lackeys stumbled around, dazed and confused. Bakugo,
Let's go, that's one of the few I
accused
can make.
Izuku of hiding behind gadgets because he was weak. Izuku tilted his head slightly, observing Bakugo as if he were an interesting specimen. He pointed out that Bakugo was unable to land a single hit. Bakugo charged again, letting rage cloud his judgment. Izuku caught his wrist mid-swing, twisting it just enough to disrupt Bakugo's stance. Their eyes locked, and Izuku's grip was firm but not cruel. He clarified that this wasn't a fight, it was a demonstration. He released Bakugo and stepped back, turning off his devices. The silence that followed was heavy. Bakugo's lackeys remained unsure whether to intervene or retreat. Bakugo growled that this wasn't over, vowing to crush Izuku. Izuku did not respond. He picked up his bag and walked toward the door, his expression unchanged. The confrontation had tested his devices under pressure and revealed a critical flaw in his peers. They lacked control. As Izuku left the classroom, he spotted Himari in the hallway, surrounded by friends, her laughter bright and easy. She noticed him but did not acknowledge his presence, and he didn't mind. Their lives, while parallel, seldom crossed. One of her friends asked if Izuku was okay, laced with mock concern. Himari replied that he was fine, her tone dismissive. Izuku continued walking, his gaze steady. Words, like quirks, were just another variable. Himari's superiority complex was simply another obstacle to manage. Later that evening, the family gathered for dinner. Himari excitedly shared stories about her day, her parents hanging on her every word. Izuku ate quietly, his mind focused on improving his devices. The family dynamic didn't bother him, it was just another predictable part of his life. After dinner, he retreated to his room. The small space was neatly organized, each tool and component in its designated spot. On his desk, a prototype for a new project gleamed in the dim light. The world around him was chaotic and flawed, filled with inefficiencies. But he would change that, not with brute strength or flashy moves, but with what truly mattered: logic. Chapter 3 begins. Morning sunlight crept through the slits in Izuku's curtains, casting pale patterns onto his workbench. The room was a chaotic blend of blueprints, unfinished devices, and carefully labeled components. A soft hum filled the air from a small device whirring on his desk, its vibrations emitting a pale blue glow. Izuku adjusted the knob on the device to ensure an even energy output. It was an improvement on a recently constructed brief-range pulse generator, which temporarily interfered with electronic signals. After weeks of tinkering, it now functioned flawlessly. Content. Izuku leaned back and took a deep breath. His gaze drifted to a corner of his workspace, where a stack of blueprints lay. They depicted devices far more ambitious than anything he had built so far: an energy amplifier, a machine for automatic material recycling, and even a concept design for an electromagnetic drive device. He sighed, feeling a wave of desperation wash over him as he thought about the lack of equipment. He had exhausted his funds weeks ago, and his parents dismissed his inventions as unimportant distractions. He couldn't afford to buy the materials himself. Standing up, he tucked the pulse generator into his pocket.
I will
and
use it
grabbed the bag.
gratefully,
He
Acedon.
reminded himself to take things one step at a time. The day passed in a blur of monotonous routine. Teachers discussed quirk applications and hero regulations, but Izuku's mind was elsewhere, simulating, writing equations, and dreaming up the possibilities for his next invention. It wasn't until the lunch bell rang that reality intruded. Bakugo and his friends cornered him at the edge of the schoolyard, their silhouettes looming over him like storm clouds.
Okay,
Bakugo
I'll
growled,
be back,
cracking
guys.
his
I have to go.